What's good, YouTube? Today we're watching Savvy Wheels. Link in the description box below, of course. We're gonna watch his video on the cheapest new car out there. And with today's market, I know we all need to know what that is. So let's get into it.
Just recently, we were able to buy new cars in North America for under $20,000. But in 2026, this is the cheapest car you can buy. This is the 2026 Hyundai Venue. And the reason why it became the cheapest car in North America is not because it was just built and it's a new model, but because the other cheaper models and cars are not sold anymore in North America. Nissan Versa was pulled out from production by Nissan, which was the only car that you could have bought for under 20K, but now this is the only one you can buy. MSRP in Canada is $22,000 Canadian, and if you live in the US, the MSRP is $20,550. So let's actually hop inside and talk about the state of cheap new cars in North America and whether this Hyundai Venue is worth the money that you pay. So since it's the cheapest car in North America, you get an actual key. There's no push start. So I find the situation with new cheap cars quite sad in North America due to the following reasons. First of all, we don't get enough cheap cars here on this continent. For example, in Europe and many other countries, even in Mexico, you can get so many other cheaper models and cars from different manufacturers that will cost you less than $20,000. And I feel like we are losing lots of competition in this exact market. And if you think about it, most of us in this part of the continent need to have a vehicle due to how the cities are built and the whole infrastructure system here in North America. So it is quite unfortunate that most of us need to have a vehicle but don't have lots of affordable options. And I think in this economy, we should have more affordable vehicles.
I believe we also should have a lot more affordable vehicles just because we're one of the only countries that's really big. Like, we're not big on using the train. Like Europe, you could use the train, the bus, and so many other ways of public transportation a lot more. And we only have like only the big cities have like a really good public transportation system. Our public transportation system is not a at least to my knowledge, it's not fully supported by the government. Because I feel like if it was fully supported by the government would have public transportation for everything. But because it's not, it's like each state or hell, not even each state, but each city honestly fends for themselves. So if you in a town, of course not. But if you like in a city, everybody kind of fights for their own stuff with enough money and all of that stuff. But it gets weird and finicky depending on what level of a city you are, this, that, and the other. So I would just think that because naturally they be so big into business, you would naturally want to have as many affordable options to still get the money, especially if you're worried about people not being able to afford or pay their bills on time, and now you got less people paying for vehicles, so that's less in the rich people's pocket to me. But you would think they would sit there and sell more of them instead of try to get rid of them. It's so weird. I feel like I would get hurt in that car because my knee will probably be touching.
So as I was mentioning before, most of the other affordable vehicles like this Toyota Yaris have been axed. There was a Chevy Spark, there was a Honda Fit, and many other affordable hatchbacks and sedans that you could have purchased and drive for a very long time. And one of the reasons why these kind of cheaper affordable vehicles are not available to us is due to the marketing by the manufacturers here on this continent. So they are pushing and forcing us to buy more SUVs and more expensive vehicles. Because if you think about it, a car like this would have a very small margin of profit. So it is one of the most optimal strategies for most car brands to sell us more expensive vehicles. And sadly, the average price of a new vehicle in Canada and the US is about $50,000, which means
Yeah.
that this car is worth less than half of the average price of a new vehicle. And that is actually bonkers. But with this, let's actually talk about whether this Hyundai Venue worth its money and whether it's actually a decent, cheapest car you can buy. So the first thing I want to mention is the interior. So basically, you have an 8-inch screen which has wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which is very welcoming for, a very cheap car. And you have a wireless charger right here for your phone. Sometimes in 2026, you don't see these features on even more expensive cars from luxury brands. I drove the Alfa have a wireless charger, and it didn't have even a wireless connection to your CarPlay. You had to connect it via a cable.
Wait, what?
And you have a wireless charger right here for your phone.
Okay, I thought I heard that right. I ain't gonna lie, just because it's the cheapest vehicle, I get it. I'm just surprised that they even allow a wireless charger, to be honest. Like, I thought it would just still have like certain ports or whatever and whatnot.
Sometimes in 2026, you don't see these features on even more expensive cars from luxury brands. I drove the Alfa Romeo Stelvio a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't have a wireless charger, and it didn't have even a wireless connection to your CarPlay. You had to connect it via a cable. So thanks to Hyundai for putting these features into this affordable vehicle. Other than this, I would say most of the interior stuff is very basic. You have basic controls for your AC, and most of the materials in this cabin is very, very cheap and cost-cutting, which makes sense. So all of the materials here, and even for your elbow rest are all made of hard plastic. But honestly, for 22,000 Canadian dollars, I wouldn't ask for more. But the thing about this interior that I do like is that it is very easy to get used to this interior. Every single function has a knob or a button, so it is very easy to navigate yourself through every single feature in this cabin. And you also have heated seats in the cheapest trim, which is also very good, especially if you live in Canada and more colder places. It is a very convenient feature to have in the cheapest car you can buy. And honestly, this car was made for city driving. And as you could have seen from all the drive we've done so far, which was mostly in downtown Vancouver, it is very easy to drive this car in the city. Even though this car doesn't have a very powerful engine. It is powered by a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine, which is naturally aspirated. It has a CVT transmission and only 120 horsepower.
You see how this road is made? Ain't no way we can have this in America. Somebody would have veered off into the middle of the road and tried to pass somebody because they're driving too slow, and then would have just caused damn near close accident, especially if they was on the phone.
But it is more than enough to drive in the city. It actually feels very agile and very potent under, I would say, 70 kilometers per hour or about 40 to 50 miles per hour. It actually feels quite zippy and agile, I think due to the fact that it is very light. But once you go above this kind of speed, it becomes very loud and it is quite lethargic to actually gain some speed. The 0 to 60 time is about 9.5 seconds, so you won't break any records. And let me actually try to put my foot down. As you can see, it becomes very, very loud and it feels like it's struggling. But it will get the job done. The other thing I like about the driving experience behind the wheel of this Hyundai Venue is that it is very easy to see out of this car. The vehicle itself is very compact and the windows are huge. And due to this kind of a squared design, You can see everything. And since this car is very short, I don't feel like I have any kind of blind spots in this vehicle, which is very good for city driving. So of course this car is meant to be affordable, so there's a lot of cost cutting. As I have explained before, the plastics are pretty hard and it is not the most comfortable vehicle to live in. But there's some advantages to that. For example, this car has a very, very small wheels. I think it's 15-inch wheels, but the good thing is that the rubber gets thicker. So actually it is quite comfortable in terms of the ride. The suspension feels pretty soft and you just won't feel like you drive some kind of a crab box, which is always tossing you around the cabin and hits you from time to time when you hit any pothole.
I
The other
noticed when
thing I
you
do like is the packaging. I just love the fact that Hyundai made this venue very, very versatile, even though it is quite compact. As you could have seen from the outside, this car is basically a small hatchback, even though Hyundai doesn't like to call it a hatchback. They like to call it a small SUV due to the fact that
right.
it's risen just a little bit. But honestly, when you drive it, it just feels like a hatchback, and when you look at it from the outside, I would also say it looks like a hatchback. And as we all know, the advantage of small hatchbacks is that you have decent amount of room for your backseat passengers. And in this venue, you can actually fit medium-sized adults with no problem, and of course kids in the back seat. And of course, there's a hatch itself. So you have decent amount of room for your cargo space, and it looks like it's not a lot from the first look, but the thing is, it is so versatile and so spacious that I could fit a whole queen mattress in the back of this vehicle. This is actually crazy. I've been helping out my friend. We somehow managed to push this thing in.
Wow.
I have managed to put a queen-sized mattress inside of this vehicle. I had to put the seat a little bit forward and I had no passengers, but I was able to fit the whole thing and move it somewhere for my friend. And another reason I enjoy driving this Hyundai Venue this week was that it feels quite nimble and light. As I was saying before, even though this car has 120 horsepower, it still feels pretty zippy inside town. And it is quite maneuverable when you try to change lanes, when you try to make a 90-degree turn, or when you just want to have fun. Going into this turn right here, it just feels very, very light. Look at this beautiful view of downtown Vancouver. But overall, I feel like it's a very decent car for the money. Honestly, I could recommend anyone who is looking for a cheap new car this Hyundai Venue from 2026. You get wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless charger. You can drive this car with no problem every single day. Of course, you will find some shortcomings from this vehicle. For example, if you drive on the highway for a very long time, I think you will find it pretty loud. Sometimes, especially in the back seat, the drive is not really good because it's a short base and it's not the most sophisticated of the suspensions. But overall, I feel like for a title of being the cheapest car in 2026, this car delivers in terms of being decent, and you won't feel like you're driving a very cheap vehicle. And as all of you know, I'm a fan of buying used cars, and for this kind of money, you can find a very decent used car on the market. But I know that it's not for everyone. Sometimes people just want this new car feel. Some people want to know the full history of their vehicle, and buying a new car solves lots of problems.
All right. I think honestly, I like it. Like I like it from a standpoint of the first things that come to my mind is like when people do Amazon Flex, when people DoorDash, even when people drive on the Spark app, and I'm here in the southeastern US, I think it's very useful, especially going on short trips as well. Like if you were going to the beach, I would say hour, 2 hour tops drive. I think this vehicle ideally will be the perfect vehicle that you will take this type of trip on instead of doing a rental. Because technically, this car is already gas efficient and it has a good amount of miles per gallon. So, I mean, from a southern standpoint, in the southern United States, most people wouldn't like it because it doesn't give you enough space. A lot of people are a big size per se, but I would even say that there's a lot of utility to it. I think more black people, if they wanted a more updated version of the car with, not having to worry about updating your radio, proper charging, where you don't have to worry about an extra cord and stuff like that unless you work somewhere that you would have to charge up stuff. Like so many things. Even saving a few dollars all through the year on gas. Like I think this will be one of the cars that everybody should be hype about if they don't get a used or old school car. But everybody gets cars for different reasons, but I do definitely hear this vehicle out. As a person that drives a Honda and I do it based on fuel efficiency, the maintenance on the vehicle in the long run not being, too high per year, and just the simple amount of maintenance that I could perform on the car myself, I definitely could sit here and say this would. I think a lot of ladies will love it, especially when they go out, take the girls out, this, that, and the other. Not too much to clean, nothing too crazy. I think guys will love it. Um, I know most people will probably have a second vehicle, but I like this. I really do like this. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. I like this vehicle. It's sad that this might be the only, cheap vehicle, like cheap new vehicle out there. I'm hoping there's more vehicles out in America, but he did say he was speaking for Canada. But if it's the only cheap vehicle at 20 some thousand miles, I'm feeling like we probably have a few other ones that might be under. I'm gonna just say on a safe note, under 25 that's brand new. I'm gonna look this up though for myself. Y'all let me know if there's any vehicles that's under 25K that's brand new, that's affordable like that. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this vehicle. I'm missing out. I'm missing out on something. I'm not sure if it has any other maintenance issues. It seemed like the roads in Canada, at least in Vancouver, is very smooth. I did not see a pothole or two. I kind of wish he drove across the pothole to see how it would kind of respond to it. But man, I don't know. People be driving slow in this be a little vehicle, and then you'll have a big truck all behind you. But it's very efficient nonetheless. You just gotta drive and do defensive driving and all that stuff. But until next time, until next video, peace.